I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, guys. I am so excited. We're going to be talking fishing and pond management.
Yeah.
Bobby's happy place.
That's right.
It is. But what's really special, I'm looking across the couch. I'm going to go ahead and get him introduced early here. We've been trying to do this for months, but this guy fishes so much. He wouldn't going to interrupt his tarpon trip.
That's awesome, yeah.
I'm going to the boundary water. He had all these trips.
Man after my own heart.
But we've got Mr. Les Ager, who's from Hawkinsville, Georgia, and at one time he was he is the man in Georgia when it comes to.
What do you mean one time, man? Come on.
Well,
at this time,
we apologize for Bobby. So.
Mr. Les, thank you for being here.
I appreciate it. I wouldn't miss it for nothing. It's very
I'd say once a man, always a man.
That's right.
Well, I tell you how I got to know Mr. Les is he's one of Barry Smith's, maybe his best friend. Barry talked about him so much.
Man, that's one of our heroes right there, buddy.
And his fly fishing ability, his pond management ability, all this stuff. Barry would just talk about him all the time. And then I met Les at Barry's the celebration of Barry's life, and so we started talking then about trying to get him over here.
Barry was a real special individual, and everybody knows. And he and I had sort of parallel careers. Not going exactly in the same direction, but pretty close. We shared a lot of the same loves, hunting, fishing, particularly fly fishing. Made a lot of good trips together.
So early in your career, you got started working with the state of Georgia and in the fisheries department. Can you kind of tell us how all that how you got started there?
Well, I learned very early in my life that I was really interested in fish. That's really some of my earliest memories is trying to catch minnows out of the creek at our house. And I was not very good at it, but it didn't deter me from enjoying it. And I tailored my education with that goal in mind. And in the early 1970s, got a job with Georgia DNR. And I really just lucked into probably the ideal job for me. Georgia wasn't a place that I gravitated to. I went there because there was a job. I'm originally from East Tennessee, and it's hard to get the mountains out of your blood when you've been up there for a while. But Georgia adopted me, and I didn't realize when I showed up how great a state it was. It's got a tremendous amount of diversity from the mountains in North Georgia all the way to the coast, and fishing is regardless of what kind of fishing you're talking about, fishing's really good in Georgia. I retired from DNR in Georgia about 15 years ago. And when I retired, I didn't really have a plan. I just sort of had momentum going in a certain direction, and I just rode it. And I ended up, from a private standpoint, essentially doing the same things after I retired that I did when I worked, except I was working for individual landowners, and we manage lakes for folks now. Probably got over 100 clients, and it's a wonderful way to spend your retirement. I've never worked a day in my life. Every day has been enjoyable.
Wow.
Cuz says that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You were telling us that Steve Harvey you manage some, if we can say that here, I don't think it's not any kind of secret.
Yeah, it's no secret he loves to fish.
There are a lot of really good fishermen that you might think of as celebrities that live in the middle Georgia and Atlanta area that we deal with, and Steve is a good example. He's a really enjoyable guy to be around, and he certainly loves fishing. He and his wife, and they're trying to foster that kind of a relationship for a lot of inner city youth.
That's awesome.
They have a big camp every year where they'll bring several hundred boys in one camp, girls in another camp, and introduce them to the outdoors, introduce them to fishing. It's a real positive event for them, and they want to grow that on their farm there in Georgia and make it a bigger event as time passes.
Pond fishing is like the universal donor. You
Yeah,
know,
that's right.
It's
incredible.
I think it's probably how
it's
everybody
perfect
gets
for everybody.
introduced, yeah.
You know,
The special, and there's even a documentary on the blue zones around the world where
Yeah.
for centuries people
yeah.
have lived longer, and especially now
They call them
consistently.
centurions, don't they?
Yeah, well, it's different zones, and there's even a spot or two in this country, but
Yeah, sure
even
is.
outside here. But there's one of the things that was in common, all of them, is that people do not retire
Mm-hmm.
and quit working. They keep on working well into their upper ages.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, much more than other places, but it's always something that they love doing.
Mm.
And I thought to point that out, how appropriate with him. Because I guarantee you, you're not only doing what you love and making more money and doing all that, but you're probably increasing your longevity doing it that way. I bet you.
I'm afraid my joints might not agree with you.
Well, you can be busy with your job and not have to necessarily be physically busy with it either. Because if you got 100 clients, you're directing a lot of. You're going to be a band orchestra as much as you are a tuba player.
Mm-hmm.
That's words to live by right there.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
Trust me.
Yeah.
I'm not a great tuba player, but I can direct a little.
He's a maestro, is what he is.
No.
Down there. He's
Bobby.
got the line.
Bobby, do you still think you're going to be coming into the office at 7 a.m. and drinking coffee into your 80s and 90s?
Well, I hope so. I really don't
hope
want to
so, too.
retire. I mean, I really don't want to. I'm hoping I can stay around. I mean, that's my hope. But hey,
I was worried about.
we might let you.
I was going to
We're
judge.
thinking about it.
look, I have this hospital bill at Mississippi State.
I got
to pay.
I got bills.
Yeah, they're on a 30-year plan for those. So we were just going. I was always judge Bobby when he got like completely grayed out, but he took it away from me by being bald.
Oh, yeah, I sure did. Hey, look, let's get back.
Yeah,
on
back to Les.
Well, I want to ask. We all probably saw, except for Toxie, he doesn't have social media, but we saw.
Oh, I'll watch it.
Steve Harvey come to tears meeting Bill Dance last week. I thought that was really, and we had just had Bill Dance on here a few weeks ago, and I don't know, that really kind of was a really neat scene there to see that emotion.
Well, it was, and it's because, not unlike the guys here at this room, he loves the sport. He enjoys it, and has enjoyed it for a long, long time, but in a very different way than, say, some of us have. We've had access to places to hunt and fish that I'm sure early in his career he did not.
Yeah.
But that doesn't deter his passion, and I respect that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
For sure. And of course, I mean, years of watching him on TV, that goes both ways. But years of watching Bill Dance fishing, you almost feel like you become his good friend.
Oh, he's
just because you see,
Yep.
you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and that's probably how it worked with Steve. It's like
Well,
he
it's
felt
magic
like they were good
personalities.
buddies just from watching his personality on TV over the years.
They're both great communicators for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, Bill Dance is the communicator of the century in fishing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So when you talk about managing a pond, it's so, to me, I mean, you walk up to the edge of this lake and you look, you cannot see anything. You don't know what's going on. There's a lot of, there's a lot of trust in somebody taking your word for this is what you need to do and this is going to be the results. But what we have learned that there is so much, if it's like a formula, if guys will follow what you
Exactly.
and others tell them.
I tell
They can
people all
have
the
the
time when
results.
they're talking about buying something. It's like the first thing I would do, and I'm this big hunting guy thing and all this stuff, but first thing I would do is, hopefully you have a place you can do it, I would build a fish pond. That's the first thing I would do for enjoying or your place, and I've said that forever. One, you can share with a lot of people where you can't necessarily do that for deer, turkey, ducks, and all that stuff. You can have the kids, Sunday school class out. In fact, just making the lake better and stuff. And on top of that, if you will do what you said, if you will just get someone, a consultant, and somebody knows what they're doing, and follow their formula, you can almost, more than anything in owning land, you can guarantee a great results if you do what they say.
Gosh, I mean, even before just say you're looking at buying land, if you see a place that you really like but you know you want to put some water on it, you need a consultant to look at it before you even buy it to make sure it's an appropriate site
Right. Yep.
Yeah, can
to
we
put a body of water on.
can we start there and talk about what you need to look for?
Yeah, we do that on a pretty regular basis, and it's a real astute sportsman that recognizes that he needs to evaluate it before he buys it, and doesn't. I really hate it for folks when they come to me with a piece of property or a lake that they've already built or someone else built and they bought, and they want a certain amount of characterization of it. They want it to be a certain way, and if they had come to me before they bought it, I could have saved them a lot of heartache, because oftentimes
Right.
every little body of water is different, and you can't necessarily do what you want on that body of water. You got to tailor your expectations to what you've got to work with.
Well, so what do y'all look for? Can you talk about runoff and an ideal situation?
The devil is in the details, and it varies a lot depending on the geology and the geography of the part of the country you live in.
Soil types, big time.
Soils are a big part of it. If you're on the coastal plain, for example, almost all the ponds on the coastal plain would be what I'd call dug ponds. They're holes in the ground that were built in a way that they hold water. If you go to further upstate into the Piedmont area or the mountain area, those kind of ponds are not really practical because of the differences in geology. And most of the ponds in those kinds of places are what you might call runoff ponds. They're dams that are built across a water source that impound the water that comes down the watershed. And those are probably the most common lakes for you guys especially.
Well, we're in the Black Belt, and I mean, I've always heard, and I've found for me building, that's the best, probably as good as there is. There's some great
Prairie
zones and places, but this dirt, and from other standpoint, but especially from building a dam that lasts the ages, is as good as it gets.
Yep. And
Not to mention a higher pH typically too
Yeah,
to start
there's-
with.
and some of those things you just can't replicate, no matter how much money you have.
Gotcha.
Is it? Are there challenges today for a guy that wants to build a 5-acre lake somewhere? Is the permitting process difficult? How does that work?
You're right. I tell folks commonly that have a pond on their property already that it's, in a lot of ways, it's priceless, because the regulatory structure is so demanding now that it's common for new ponds to just not be feasible, that you just cannot get the permits, or if you can get the permits, you can't afford the mitigation required to mitigate the loss of wetlands and streams. So if you've got a piece of property that has an impoundment of any kind on it, arguably you've got something. If it was taken away from you, you couldn't just go buy another piece of property and build it back. You can't do it. It's a priceless asset.
Isn't there a regulation that delineates big and small, like under 20 foot acres is a different set of regulations than bigger than that?
There are some nuances
Right.
associated with the permitting requirements, and it depends a lot on which state you're in.
Oh, wow.
There are both federal and state permits required, and it is a very difficult process to navigate, and it certainly is well worth hiring somebody up front to help you navigate that process before you get your heart set on building a lake on this piece of property that you've.
I experienced that, and it was 20 years
time
ago,
ago.
probably, the lake at the cabin and all out there. Great example. It was in the upper end of a kind of limey Demopolis outcrop type of soil prairie, and it was like a little drainage coming through it, but it was on the side of a hill, and you could have a 6-inch rain and there wouldn't be any water left in it. It was not by any standard, it couldn't be considered a wetland. It was up on this side of a hill, and so we ended up having to go through that whole process, and then the way they did it stirred up a bunch of people thinking I was going to dam up the whole county. And then they had to go to the board, and it was ridiculous. Finally, they realized what was going on, and it proved it. But then I had to go hire an environmental engineer, or they wouldn't do it. And I had to pay them a couple times to come in and reevaluate and all that. And then we had to mitigate for cattle pasture. You know, it was like, for a 21-acre lake, it was like 4 or 5 acres maybe. And so we were able to, because we do have a lot of wetlands out there, the guy approved a strip that we could put aside forever and not worry about for that. But you're right. I can't imagine it's worse now. It was 25 years ago.
It's worse now.
And it just changed. Prior to that, it really wasn't that bad.
So is there like I don't want to say loophole, but is there like a size?
Yeah.
Like if you're less than a certain acreage, Bobby mentioned 5 acres.
It varies depending on where you are.
Okay.
And it's not the same everywhere. In Georgia, if you're impounding a lake that's less than 10 acres, the rules are a little bit more relaxed. But regardless of the size of the lake, if you're impacting wetlands or streams,
Right.
they will require mitigation, and mitigation is expensive. I mean, they've got something that's, whoever the mitigation banker is, he's got something, and he's the only game in town. You have to buy from him.
Is this all driven by the no net loss of wetlands
It
of the
is.
Corps engineers?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
What I always, not to get up on that rabbit hole, but you know, you've got something that you'd have to mitigate 3 acres worth to be able to create what you want, and what you're creating is actually 20 acres of wetlands, and they still won't let you do it, even though the net gain is 17 acres from you doing it. So that's what I would say. It's overregulated myself.
Ager's first rule of government: logic and reason have no place. But it's easy to see why, if you've got an existing lake on your place.
Oh, no question
it
about
really,
it. Adds so much
really
value.
simplifies
Yes.
your process
Yeah.
of creating a good
Yes.
resource for you.
So the days of just hiring somebody with a pan and a dozer and come, hey, build this 3-acre lake, those are kind of over with. You've got to get permits to do this sort of stuff.
That still goes on. That still goes on, and I'm not sure it's not even the majority. But it's no question not the legal way to go about building a lake.
Could that person later down the road find themselves in
absolutely.
a situation where
Might be.
I've known folks that is exactly what happened, and
So I've heard Hank Parker talk about a friend of his that built a large lake to use it and was going to use it to pump out of to irrigate crops and stuff. And maybe is that what you're talking about? So that
be,
could be
yeah.
approved a little quicker, possibly.
it could be. It could be.
Well, it could be easier.
Again, depending on the details.
So yeah, and I think that even if it's crazy, the way I understand some of the law was written, and I'm sure industry lobbyists worked this in years ago, but like the timber and silviculture industry is immune to like the Corps engineers domain on certain things. Now, I correct me if I'm wrong out there. I'm not saying I know everything, but once upon a time, they could not touch if it was to do with like growing trees or harvesting trees. So you could, or if you remember, we're at Portland. There was like I want to say, was it 800 acres, like water with I think that's how much.
Cypress, yeah.
Many hundreds of acres with cypress and a lot of those black gum and
Tupa
stuff.
gums,
Yeah,
yeah.
tupa gum. Just like a forest of them, and this beautiful. And they went through there and
padded
cut
it, cut every
all
one
that
of them.
down.
Sure did.
And they couldn't. And then they even drained some of it, and they couldn't touch them because it was silviculture practice. And I also know landowners that have drained drained wetlands, and they couldn't get in any trouble at all because they reforested it in trees. So there's my point of that. There's a lot of nuances why all the more reason you need a consultant to be sure and wade through it for you.
And at the very beginning, if you're absolutely just getting started, a good place to get at least some pretty good information is folks you already do business with, probably, and that's NRCS, Natural
Absolutely.
Resources
Absolutely.
Conservation. Your farm bill people, they are about as knowledgeable as you can find to guide you in what is and is not a feasible practice as far as building or repairing existing lakes go.
Yeah, and if you got a good one in your county, and I'm not saying they're not all good, but they're like any other job, there's some better than others. If you've got one that's really good, common sense, thorough, understands everything, works with you man, it's just like that lake you said. That's a big asset. You
It's
need to be
amazing.
sure you let them know you appreciate them and
Yeah,
try
shout out to our local
yes, sir. They are a great resource when they're working with you.
So, how many acres of runoff ideally would you like to see in if somebody's going to build a lake for trophy bass?
For an upland lake, a lake with primarily watershed as a water supply, I'd like to see at least 20 acres of watershed for every acre of impounded water, and 30 to 40 is really not too much. Back in the old days, 50, 60 years ago, when pond management was really just getting started, the kinds of fertilizer folks used back then, what I call conventional fertilizers, were the devil to get to dissolve. You couldn't hardly make them dissolve. And if you had a lake that had a lot of water flushing through it, you simply couldn't dissolve the fertilizer fast enough to make it a fertile lake. But with the new products that are on the market today for fertilizing, particularly something like Perfect Pond Plus is just ideal. And I've successfully fertilized lakes that have a 50 or 60 to 1 ratio. Lakes that other consultants had given up on and said you can't fertilize them. If you use the right kind of fertilizer, it dissolves instantly, and you start growing the basis for your food web out there initially very quickly, and it doesn't matter that it flushes through. Now, it does make it a little more expensive, but with the old kind of fertilizers, you just couldn't do it. It didn't matter what the cost was.
Well, it's
You
so
just
much
couldn't do
easier.
it.
So what you're saying, if you have something that's on the higher end, say 50, 60, and you're getting a big year like this with a lot of rain, you're going to have to spend, you have to fertilize more frequently. But the point about like Perfect Pond and that other stuff probably like it, but it's so much easier to have to go back and do it on top of that.
Oh, yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it does dissolve so
and
fast.
effective, easier and effective.
So that's a higher runoff ratio than I was expecting you to say. I was expecting you to say about maybe 5 to 7, and
I'm sure there's some nuances to that too. Gradients.
There is, and that's what I was fixing to say. One of the, I guess you'd call it an advantage or maybe a disadvantage, depending on your point of view, working with biology, with living things, is there are no hard and fast rules. There just ain't. And anybody who tries to tell you there are is either misinformed or just uninformed. A lake that has a lot of water running through it, if you try to fertilize it, there may be some periods of time when you have high runoff that you choose not to fertilize it simply because it's flushing through so fast. That doesn't mean you can't fertilize it at other times of the year and get the benefits of fertilizing at other times. So it's not an all or nothing kind of proposition necessarily. It just takes some imagination and willingness to use a good scientific based approach. Right. Almost any body of water is manageable to some degree.
So, is there a difference in the watershed runoff in a heavy clay versus a sandy soil, and isn't that called perk?
Yeah.
So, explain to people like what's the definition of perk for them?
Well, perk is what a lot of folks would call seepage. Seepage is what a lot of folks would call leaking. And it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
It depends on your approach.
Right.
If you're an engineer, it's seepage. If you're the guy on the track hoe trying to fix a leak, it's leakage. And if you're fertilizing, it's perk.
Yeah, because
It's all the same thing.
Yeah, and then it's more than just the surface perk. There's, for example, here you get total runoff. Might as well be running off concrete because we got a heavy clay, and a lot of times under there, not far, is a hard pan of lime rock. And some of this prairie stuff. So everything hits the ground, it runs off like in the city stuff. But then you've got some sandy soils with a harder pack underneath it. But if you got I know we built one and it turned out great. There's a guy from Scuba, Mississippi, who's as good as I've ever seen. David Bryan does an amazing job. And he told me when we built it, the one Bobby loves so much down there, I kind of did an oxbow lake because I knew the river would get in it. And, use Barry and to help me with it. But he told me, he said, I'm pretty sure I can make this like you want it and make it Loctite. but I cannot promise you that. And he said, if you're willing to take a chance, I said, I'll take a chance. And so he dug so deep where it was sandy, and when excavated some heavy clay, probably 4 feet of it, and did it, and it has worked beautifully. But again, you had to have someone who knew what they were doing, or what probably would have been a bad investment.
Not necessarily. Even if he knew what he was doing, he could have encountered soil types that could have made it a total bust. So having the ability to take a calculated risk is an advantage.
Yes. And I have a cousin of mine, I'm going to call him names, but he had a guy build a pond for him. They got a couple guys quoted, and this guy was cheaper and went out there and built. He didn't core it or anything. And I remember he called Chris Ollie about it. It's, what's going on with my dam? I'm standing on the dam, and it's like, I feel like I'm standing on Jello, and it's a pretty good sized lake.
Better get off.
And he was like, get off of it right now. Get off of it right now. And it literally, in 30 minutes, it blew out, and he lost the whole lake. And the guy he got a guy that didn't know what he was doing. Just had equipment. So more experienced builders are very important.
There's a lot of folks out there that just because they can operate a good track hoe and can install culverts.
There's an art form. There's an art form to it. It really is.
Well, and your point too, when he's digging, recognizing the soils, where the seams are, and what's going to work.
You really need to know all that before you start digging.
There you
In other
go.
words, having somebody go out and on the case of a small lake, you can do test pits with a backhoe and get a good idea of what to expect and where your source of soil can be. But you don't want to do that after you've started construction. You want to
that's
start
true.
way before construction begins.
So,
Good point.
Are there new modern ways of doing drain pipes now that pull that water off the bottom of the lake? Or is that something that's you kind of frowning there when I ask you that?
I'm sorry, I can't help, but you couldn't really be more wrong.
Okay.
The primary spillway construction that's state of the art has been state of the art for about almost 100 years, I guess. Standpipe risers in one form or another are without question the preferred primary spillway for lakes and ponds. The materials that you build them out of nowadays are far improved, much better than we built them out of even 40 years ago. But with PVC and concrete, but a standpipe riser is far superior to any other kind of primary spillway, even on very large lakes. We're working on a lake right now that's probably going to be in the neighborhood of 30 some odd acres, and the pipe through the dam will be a 6 foot diameter pipe, but it's still going to be a standpipe riser, just a very big one for a lake that size. You hear folks talk a lot about siphons, and siphons are sort of, I hate to say new because they've been around for close to 30 years now, but when PVC became popular for a building material, siphons, they hold an attraction, and their attraction is you don't have to move much dirt to install a siphon because it doesn't go to the bottom of the lake. It only crosses the dam up near the water line. And the amount of dirt you move is directly related to how much it's going to cost. So siphons are attractive because they're cheaper to install. And they're particularly useful if you've got to renovate an old dam, a dam that maybe is on a pretty big lake that had a standpipe riser that deteriorated and no longer works. It's very tempting to retrofit those kinds of old lakes with a siphon system. There's some major disadvantages of a siphon system that almost nobody says anything about. One is the diameter. A siphon system, unlike a standpipe riser, the siphon has to completely fill with water for it to actually function as a siphon. So if you've got a 12-inch pipe, the water has to rise at least 12 inches before the siphon ever kicks in. And for an old dam that was engineered for a standpipe riser system, it doesn't have necessarily the freeboard or the elevation in a secondary spillway that will allow the installation of that 12-inch siphon. That's kind of complicated to follow, but It is not the savior of a lot of ponds that folks think they are. Also, if a siphon gets stopped up, and they do from time to time get stopped up, they're almost totally isolated. You can't. Everything is underground or underwater, and you can't get to it to clear any kind of clog or accumulation of brush or something as simple as a single turtle shell. And once it's stopped up and you can't unstop it, you really don't have any other choices other than to abandon it and install another siphon. And so I used to be a big fan of siphons and used a lot of them, and I've installed a lot of them. But if I've got my druthers, I'd much rather have an old standpipe riser than any other kind of primary spillway.
Yeah, that's what we want to learn.
I'm sure this answer depends, but just say somebody wanted to build a new fishing lake, and they, have a 40-acre place, and anyway, the terrain may allow you to make a whatever size you want. What would be like the smallest you can get away with, where you would say, you can bring your family out on weekends and keep a few fish? And I mean, I know there's going to be a pond that's too small to be able to keep up with. So what is that magic number?
It really is hard to pin it to a number. There's two primary factors that come into play. One is the physical size of the pond, how many gallons of water it holds. The smaller it is and the fewer gallons of water it holds, the more difficult it's going to be to maintain good water quality. And the second thing is a pond is a lot like a pie. In other words, your pie is limited to how big the pond is. And as you put fish in it, that fills up, that's the filling of your pie. And when you start dividing it up between 2 or 3 different species, and then you take each species and divide them up into small ones and mediums and large. And this is an oversimplification, but suddenly your pie, you just don't have very many slices. You got a little bit of everything, but you ain't got much of nothing. What you can do with small lakes, say 2 acres and under, is abandon the approach of trying to grow your fish, raise your fish in the lake. Instead, stock your lake with fish that have been raised in a hatchery. It could be channel catfish, it could be striped bass hybrids, it could be largemouth bass that are feed trained. And you stock it with those, and you absolutely ignore anything else that may be in the pond. You stock those fish, you feed them with pelleted food and an automatic fish feeder, and you fish them for a year, 2 years, maybe 3 years, maybe more. And as that fishery declines, you drain it, kill it out, and simply start over. And it makes great fishing. We talked about Steve's place in Georgia. For those kids that he brings in, we've got about an 11-acre pond that we've stocked with feed-trained largemouth bass and feed-trained striped bass hybrids. And it would scare you to think about falling in the water around one of them feeders. It is the darndest fishery you've ever seen. I mean, it is, I'd put it up against anybody's.
Wow.
And them hybrids now, they've been in there for 3 years. Their average size is about 3.5, 4 pounds. And they are absolutely all a Zebco 303 can handle. And you better hold on to the kid's belt.
The good old Zebco 303.
I've heard those
Rite of passage.
hybrids really fight good.
They're an excellent pond fish, and we treat them like folks 50 years ago treated catfish. In other words, you just had a pond, you wanted to stock something to catch. Instead of stocking catfish, stock those striped bass hybrids. They're a little more expensive to stock, but after you spread the cost out over 4 years of fishing, it's really not that big a deal.
I was going to ask about the catfish ponds. When I was young, it seemed like they were everywhere, and they were just what you were talking about. And is there much of that going on anymore? It just doesn't seem like there is.
There still is some. The reason it was so popular is not because catfish were such a great fish. It was because folks could raise them and sell them easily. And that really guided a lot of pond management. It's not what you wanted to put in the lake, it's what you could get to put in the lake. And the drawback of channel catfish, other than the fact that they're got poisonous stickers sticking out of them all over for kids to get hurt on, is the fact that they reproduce. They can reproduce very well in a pond. And once you've stocked them, after they've been in there a couple of years, they start to reproduce. And at that point, you don't have any idea how many fish you've got anymore. And you don't know how much to feed. And they don't tend to grow as well. So as long as you manage them on a 2 or 3 year cycle and start over, they work really, really great. But I'd still say that something like feed-trained largemouth or feed-trained hybrids are better. Just everybody knows that in the summertime when it gets real hot, catfish kind of go dormant, don't feed much. Them hybrids, they still eating it up. They just turn the water white every time the feeder comes on.
Wow.
So with Steve's pond, will it, have a life cycle and you'll restart, or does that one manage itself?
I'm fixing to restock it with striped bass hybrids on top of what we've already got. They've been in there for 3 years. I'm fixing to restock this year. And I'm really not certain I need to restock, but I don't want to risk.
You want to stay ahead of the curve?
I want to stay a little bit ahead, so that's why we're stocking.
Those things
I can
are so
appreciate
fun
that.
to catch.
they're-
They fight so hard. It's like a saltwater fish, they fight hard.
And in comparison to catfish, you're going to have to mess with yucky, stinking
Slimy.
bait and stuff like that. You can throw a
they
little spinner bait out there and catch them hybrids all day long.
They sure do eat good. But,
Yeah, they are good.
yeah, the best way to get your catfish is in the river, though.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat flatheads. It's hard to
That's
beat.
right. It is. But the river's where they belong.
Oh, I know. I've learned from people. It's hilarious. Some of the people that put them in ponds.
Oh, I've talked about it a lot.
Oh my
I've gotten
gosh!
shut
It was
down.
they wipe it. They'll wipe it out.
Well, not necessarily, but more often than not they will. Yeah.
I like what I'm hearing from you. What I learned a couple of things in school, but one of them was, if you're going to be a biologist, you need to be willing to tell your clients if they're wrong or they're, you don't want to tell them what they want to hear, and a lot of folks want you to tell them. What am I trying to say?
What they want to hear,
right?
Not what the truth is, yes.
And you've already corrected us twice, and that's a great thing.
I'll tell you
That-
something.
that's-
One of my favorite
That's
stories.
what we're paying you to do.
I had a guy call me when I just had begun this kind of work. It's been 15 years ago. And he was a city boy. And he was admitted he was a city boy. And he bought him a farm and when he called me, he had already contracted with somebody to build him a lake. And they built him a lake. And he had already ordered him some fish to stock in it. And somehow or other he got in his mind that he needed now to call me. and the pond was in the process of filling up. And when he called me, I could see lots of things that he should have done differently. But the primary one is I asked him, I said, have you killed the fish out that are in the lake? And he said, well, there are no fish in the lake. We just built the lake. I said, oh no, there's fish in there. He said, well, there ain't no way there's fish in there. I said, I seen it. It was dry as a bone. There ain't no way there's fish in there. I said, well, if it was dry as a bone, I said, how's it filling up with water? He said, well, there's a spring over in that corner right yonder, in that spring. I said, well, where was that spring when you were building the lake? I said, it was there then, and it had water. And where water is, fish are. It's a very simple rule. Where there's water, there's fish. Well, this guy said, there wasn't no fish in here. He said, I don't care what you're saying. There wasn't no fish in here. He said, let's go ahead and stock it. And I said, okay, we'll stock her. And about 18 months later, I said, we're going to go out and monitor and see how you stock fish you've done. And we went out there and we had stocked largemouth bass, bluegill, and shellcrackers. We hadn't stocked threadfin shad yet.
Did you do any like fathead minnows, anything like that?
No. And
Probably good you didn't.
right, because when we went out there, I think we sampled 13 different species of fish. 3 of which we had stocked. The other 10 were
Was already there.
obviously, and probably some of the other 3 that we stocked were there already.
You probably
there.
had some kind of rarer stuff if you had a spring there, with
he
that kind
had
of fresh water.
One of the things that made this unusual is he had a crop of redfin pickerel. Do you know redfin pickerel?
Wow.
It's a fairly common, but sort of an obscure little fish that is a little giant. It's a little predator that only gets to be about 10 inches long, and he had them in there. But it was a good example of how you don't get started with a good pond. You don't get started.
Did he believe you when all that was over? Or did he think you had stocked those with your?
It enhanced my credibility a little bit.
I bet so.
Well, it leads me to that great side say you used it yesterday. It's like, and someone gave it to Cuz, but then Cuz said, and I adopted it all the time. In life, whatever, everything, especially in business or whatever too, don't guide the guide.
Don't coach the coach either.
Don't coach both of those.
Toxie, why is it when I borrow something from Jerry Clower, I steal it? When you borrow something from Cuz, you adopt it. What's the difference?
Well, I mean, because you don't say where you got it from. You just claim it like it's yours. I always give the author the credit.
Okay, you see how this goes, Les. It's rough around.
Well,
here.
I'm trying to bring him up, teach him right, but he's kind of rebellious.
So, Les, what are the mistakes you see most folks making with their ponds?
The one I just described is the most common. Not killing out before they get started.
And the way you do that would be rotinone?
It is, and it's especially hard right now because worldwide, I guess, there's a shortage of rotinone.
Wow.
It's not, as far as I'm aware, it is, for the most part, totally unavailable in the marketplace.
Wow. Is it used for other things besides that?
Yes, but they're all pretty closely related. It's used in crawfish culture a lot.
Wow.
Used in various aquaculture industries use it. But for the most part, and it's used, at least it used to be used a lot, as an insecticide for some vegetable crops.
Wow.
But I'm not sure that's still the case. There may be better insecticides now than there used to be.
So chemically, it takes all the oxygen out of the water. Is that right?
No, it doesn't.
What
work
does it
like
do
that.
then? I always thought that's what it did.
It binds to the red blood cells in the fish's blood.
How about that?
And the fish then is unable to absorb oxygen into those blood cells. So the fish, for all practical purposes, suffocates.
Right, okay.
But not because the oxygen was removed from the water.
Same thing, just different chemistry I didn't understand.
Yeah.
So they come up to the surface, and that's why people can dip them out pretty quick, and they're good to eat and all that stuff.
They're
too.
good to eat. They're dead.
Yeah, that's right. No. You can't go use them somewhere. Yeah.
But it's a plant-based insecticide.
Wow.
That is, I think, largely found in plants that are native to South America, and the company that
Certain legume plants.
put it together has shut down and don't have a plan for exactly when they're going to open. So it's really a tough time right now for how to start a pond correctly. The only other toxicant that really is a practical alternative is chlorine.
Oh man.
I don't want that. Yeah.
You treat it just like it's just a swimming pool.
Well, couldn't the best
a lot of bleach.
wouldn't the best alternative today then be a completely dried out pond
You
with
can't
no?
do that. You can't do that.
Wow.
It's one of them things that sounds good on paper, and it's great to talk about. But when you get out there on the ground,
Right.
that kind of an environment just doesn't typically exist.
So I guess we'll
there's
delineate
always-
between a new pond you built. You could do that surely.
It's a very rare pond, and you can see the evidence of this. You'll look out on a pond and you'll see places where there's patches of timber or old stumps sticking up. The reason those old stumps were there is because that ground was too moist when they built that pond to get out there and remove them. So they left them. And moisture, water, is going to harbor fish. So it's very, very rare to actually ever run across a completely dry pond.
Right.
Now, hatchery ponds are built to drain completely.
Right.
So on a hatchery, it's very different, but a
So
farm
it says
pond is very
I'm
different.
starting with a cattle pasture that has nothing, and I'm starting from scratch building my pond. I mean, and there's not any water anywhere around. Would it not be clean when you stock it? Because I've never done anything with those but stock them, and I've never, honestly, probably built 10.
If it's
I've never had lucky I hadn't had a contamination.
if
yet.
it's a completely dug pond, in
Yeah,
other words, strictly
right.
dug, no
Yeah.
runoff that goes into it,
Right.
then that will be the case.
Okay.
And you're safe there. But outside the coastal plain, you don't get that very often. Most of the ponds do have some runoff, and anytime there's runoff or when there's groundwater.
Well, yeah, most of the good sites you can kind of pick them out on a topo map to start with, so
You
there
can.
would be runoff in them. So
Yeah.
you're right about that.
So about I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, I've like all my life been looking for a place to build a pond.
Yeah, I was thinking about when he was talking about the right process. I was thinking about your journey.
Yeah, so
Oh my
I
gosh.
found a place. I was looking one day on Mossy Oak Properties, and there was about a 40-acre place popped up around Carthage, and it looked like to me you could build about a 25-acre lake on it. I got so excited about just looking at the topo, and when I rode down there and looked at it, I had totally read the topo backwards.
It was a
25 acres.
Right, you can do it if you're not careful.
Wait just a minute.
And sometimes you're looking at a big place, you can be confusing even to an experienced person. That wait, stop. Is that which way is that again? You know.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
gets us
that hurt
all.
my feelings. So.
What a great
So
story.
what other mistakes are guys making? I know you're going to go with they're not taking enough fish out.
The common mistakes are stocking improperly. That's oftentimes masked by the fact that they left wild fish in the basin to start with. Right. But even if they got rid of the wild fish, it's pretty common for folks to want to stock fish that come from an unreliable source. Mm-hmm. It may be intentional on their part. They may want to stock crappie or pickerel or any number of species, but just as frequently they'll stock them inadvertently. They'll contract with a consultant that sells fish. Almost none of the consultants that sell fish, almost none of them have a hatchery. They almost all buy their fish from a hatchery and hold them in tanks, haul them on the back of a pickup truck, and distribute them that way. And it's really, really easy to take a tank of fish and not realize that it's been contaminated with species that you don't want. Or for that matter, it could even be a species that you don't want, because at real small sizes,
Can't tell
a lot of laymen wouldn't know a bluegill if he bit them.
Yeah.
So there is a certain amount of trust involved in dealing between the landowner and a good consultant, and good consultants are not as easy to find as you think they are. There's a lot of folks out there don't have a lot of experience, and they're trying to do it in a way that maximizes their income, and sometimes you don't get what you bargained for. And you don't find out that you didn't get what you bargained for until 3 years later, and somebody says, well, where did these green sunfish come from that are in my pond? Well, the guy who stocked your fish probably stocked them, and he may not have even realized it.
That would probably be one of the easiest ones to get in there, I would think, too, isn't it?
They're one of the more resilient species out there.
Yes.
Remember, too, though, that one reason we deal with largemouth bass and bluegill, they're pretty darn adaptive creatures, too.
Yeah.
They're hardy, and they'll do real well in a variety of environmental conditions.
Largemouth is invasive in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
They're awesome. So I was going to ask you, are there other brim sunfish type species that are, I know it's just about completely taken over with coppernose these days, but are there others that are just as compatible and a good pairing with the bass?
No,
just
they're
pretty much
really
the coppernail. That's it.
Bluegill is it because they have the capability, unlike almost all other sunfish. Not every one, but most of them.
Right.
Most sunfish spawn typically once a year.
Right.
Shell crackers, you I'm sure fished them.
Oh yeah.
They spawn once a year.
And they are a great combination too. They don't bother anything much, do they, with the bass?
They don't bother anything, but they don't produce
Right.
enough to be a valuable forage for bass.
I got you.
When you got the need for forage, you need bluegill.
Right.
And that's because bluegill are so cotton picking productive.
Right.
You know, they spawn starting probably in April, maybe even in March some years, and they'll spawn off and on all summer long.
That's incredible.
And it is incredible, and it's incredibly necessary.
Oh, yeah.
If you're trying to support a crop of bass in the lake because there just is no substitute for having a lot of bluegill. Now you can supplement bluegill with some other things like shell crackers who may help a little bit, but they can't carry the load like bluegill can.
No. And then, of course, the shad are great.
Shad are helpful, but they're nowhere near as valuable as those bluegill are.
It's kind of a good analogy to say this. It's like you have this property you're managing for wildlife, and the top priority is to manage the native habitat to support, the carrying capacity you have and all, and making that healthy, and not just put a bunch of feeders out there and think you can do that. So that bluegill is the staple you have to have, and you couldn't do that with another species, really.
In a lot of ways, feeders are a trap.
Yeah.
Folks get focused on their feeders, and they think that feeder, and maybe they've got several feeders, and they think that that's really important. It's nowhere nearly as important as fertilizing that lake.
Yes.
That fertilizer affects every cotton-picking fish in the lake. The feed only affects the fish that are hanging around the feed.
Yeah, it makes copper-nosed bluegill bigger, and that's probably as good a tasting fish as you'll ever eat. Is that
good for everything.
That fed? Oh my goodness, they're incredible. So don't you think one of the top mistakes, at least for me, it has been the top mistake probably, is just under harvesting?
It's very common. It's the most common problem I encounter is folks who have too many bass and can't harvest enough. And it's because, in a lot of ways, it's because they don't have the time to devote to it. But more than that, even if they had the time to devote to it, I just don't think they've got the physical capacity to remove enough fish. And it varies a lot from one lake to another. There's no way anyone can sit here and tell you for sure how many fish need to be removed from a lake until they've done enough sampling in the lake over a period of time to define it. Every lake is a little bit different. I've got some lakes where we'll take out a couple hundred bass a year. And other lakes the same size, we may take out 1,000.
Right.
And the same size body of water, managed the same way, just tremendous differences in carrying capacity.
Right.
And there's no explaining that.
I remember him telling me, Barry, of course, we always kind of go back to him here. And I may be wrong, but I think he said, when we were just discussing possibilities, he said, well, in general, the larger the lake, the more it tends to kind of manage itself a little better than a smaller lake. And then add the soil type and the depth and the amount of cover too. But he said, in general, if you had a bigger lake with everything done right, you would kind of, it would let off a little of your pressure to be so regimented on your harvest.
It buffers your effects.
Yeah.
A little lake, a little resource of any kind, can be a food plot.
Yeah.
The smaller it is, the more reactive it is to things that happen. So a large lake is, in many ways, easier to manage than a small lake is.
What about a bunch of trees around the edge of a lake? I'm sure you'll cover trees growing on a dam. I don't know if, I hear that's not good, but I'm talking about the rest of the lake. Would you rather see a bunch of mowed grass up to the edge, or do you like it to be forested, or a mix, or does it matter?
In all honesty, it probably doesn't matter as much as folks like you and I think it should. If you go to a fish hatchery where they're making their living selling fish, the more they can grow, the better. They got no trees. They got no special way they take care of the shoreline. And the reason is because it doesn't affect fish. It affects the fisherman, affects the user. So you can manage the shoreline of your lake to suit your own personal preferences.
Okay.
The fish don't really care. It may affect your ability to catch them. I love to popping bug fish and fly fish for bluegill, and it's tough to do that on a lake where the shoreline is
surrounded
15 feet back from the end of
big willows hanging out and stuff.
Wax myrtles.
Yeah.
And so I like it a little cleaner. On the other hand, I don't like the opposite. I've got some clients that insist on taking glyphosate and riding around the pond on their four-wheeler, spraying glyphosate around the edge to kill every single thing right down to the edge of the water. And you can look at those ponds, and they're aging dramatically in a short period of time. faster than they should because those clean shorelines just begin to erode and slough off, and water that used to be 2.5 feet deep, 3 feet from shore, is now 1.5 feet deep, 3 feet from shore, and decreasing. So, but the fish are much more resilient than you think they are. So it's really a matter of personal fisherman preference.
Yeah.
It is.
Weed eating with herbicides is a pet peeve of mine.
It's
most
a
of the
terrible
time.
thing. Yeah, I hate it.
Well, what about the all female ponds? Barry's taught us about those through the years, and I think you guys worked closely together to kind of create that whole formula.
Yeah, we did. This was back probably about 2000, 2001. I can remember sitting around talking with Barry and discussing options. They had a big lake that they were involved with down on the Georgia coast. And coincidentally, I was still working with DNR at the time. We were building a big lake in central Georgia, about 100 acres. And maybe by a year, I think we stocked that lake in middle Georgia. And as far as I'm aware, it was probably the first lake ever stocked, at least in the South here, with females only. And that was in 2002. In 4 years, they found a 14.5-pound largemouth in that lake. It was
Look at Bobby
it was
over
an
there.
incredible experience to be involved with the management of it. And unfortunately, it was built in an area with a lot of limestone, and before it could get much older, a sinkhole erupted and the lake left.
Oh,
And
wow.
They essentially had to rebuild the lake and scrap what they had done to that point. But that was the first attempt at all female bass. Of course, all females, that strategy is aimed at reducing and controlling the number of bass in the lake, so that there's you minimize the competition for resources.
And it doesn't explode, it exponentially grows, because
It doesn't grow at all.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you have male and female, it grows so exponential. It's like you think you got a problem this year with this hatch. Wait till those all hatch, and the next year, and then the next year, it's like this big upside down pyramid.
But if you stock only females, you don't have that. In that way, it's a much simpler management plan.
Yeah.
It's really, really simple. You stock the devil out of forage fish, try to maximize your forage fish production, and just let the largemouth take care of themselves. I've heard folks talk about you need to restock periodically and whatnot. That's something you probably want to do from time to time, but the fish are not going to respond to it very well. All you need is leave the fish alone,
Right.
and let them grow.
I guess if a guy really he was all caught up in wanting to do that, you would say, well, just do a census and see what's going on before we do something like that. And just
And something I've never heard anybody mention, but something I think all the reputable folks that are using all female bass as a strategy, we're using pit tags on all our fish.
Yeah.
Which is like chipping your dog. Each bass out there, we've got a name. He's got a name. He's got a number, and we can keep up with them and monitor real closely how they perform. So as the future unfolds over the next couple of decades, it'll be real interesting to see from a genetic standpoint how we are using these tools and how we can modify and select for various traits.
That's wild.
That is wild.
It's way out in the future, though.
So cool to contemplate doing that. We actually had the one spot here at the Mossy Oak Golf Course. We did that. Question I had on that, well, also, is there an additional benefit of some weight gain from not having to go through the rigors of the spawn too?
Oh gosh, that's almost unquantifiable.
Wow. So there's a lot of that on top of
the amount of stress that a bass endures to spawn, if you just sort of think about it day by day, it's an incredible amount of stress. It's incredibly difficult for a fish and causes them they use energy to survive it all.
Right. Yeah.
And that's energy that can't contribute to growth.
Right.
The fact that they don't have to chase each other around, the fact that they don't have to fan beds, the fact that They don't actually expel any eggs. They just reabsorb them all.
Yep.
All that makes life easier for them, and they survive in greater numbers, and they grow better.
Wow.
So in today's world, a guy used to would have to take a shocking boat out, shock up to see the fish, and for you guys to lay eyes on them. With the new technology, with these live scopes, can a biologist, can a guy put a boat in with one of those screens and get a good idea what's in his lake? And
There are some new software out there, new apps with sonar that allows you to enumerate and approximate the size distribution of fish that you pass over with your sonic gear. I'm very skeptical that they would be accurate enough to really be very helpful. For example, if they'll tell you up front that they only work in water that's 3 feet or greater in depth. They don't work in shallow water. Well, anybody who bass fishes knows that there's a lot of bass in less than 3 foot of water, a lot. Some days, all of them are less than 3 foot deep. On top of that, if you see a bass, if the electronics sees and counts a bass, who's to say that it didn't see and count that bass multiple times while you're out there on the lake? So, again, I'm sort of skeptical of it, and I don't think there's any substitute for the traditional kinds of sampling methods that we use. Extra bells and whistles might attract some clients, but I think you're still going to see us manage lakes with an electrofishing boat.
Okay, yeah. Lanny, look like you got a question.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all giving me a chance to ask something.
Lanny,
I do. Thank y'all.
Don't ask him his favorite
y'all,
color
thank y'all,
worm,
thank y'all.
okay?
It's every man for himself.
I've
Good
noticed,
week,
and I am going to bring it back to myself. I appreciate you saying that because I am, a DIYer kind of guy, and maybe some of the people out there, might have access to a lake, but can't necessarily, afford to start from scratch and all those other kind of things. So, can you if you were, to Dudley's point, just got 40 acres and there's a 5-acre lake on it, what, what?
Ironically,
Yeah, few things could you do. I understand. It sounds like fertilization is numero uno. So what would be the next couple things after that, or are there any?
There are, and even before you decide to fertilize, you need to have water tests.
Yeah,
taken
water quality,
and
yeah.
make sure your lime content is adequate for your fertilizer to really be effective.
Is that a pH?
It can be a pH, but pH is in the water. pH is not a very reliable way of measuring buffer capacity. A better way is to measure alkalinity or total hardness. Those are simple tests to run. You can go get you a water bottle, fill it up with pond water, take it to your county agent. He'll send it to the university lab, and they'll tell you what it is.
What about a pool test kit? I mean, I've seen alkalinity and pH and stuff.
The range that those kits are made for are not appropriate for pond water.
Gotcha.
We're working at much lower concentrations than in swimming pools.
Gotcha.
So I remember Barry going water in a test tube, and he was just putting a drip at a time and watching it.
They make
I guess to turn color, that was a long time ago, and he kept on putting just the one at Shimola,
The
which
drips
is
in it,
which is a pretty high pH soil too. And he just kept doing drips in it, and I don't know, he got up in the teens, and it didn't do, and he finally looked at me and he just tossed the water out and said, "You're not gonna have a problem with alkalinity."
What he was doing is he was measuring almost certainly total hardness.
Right.
That's a real reliable method.
Total hardness.
Each drop represented 1 part per million in total hardness.
Wow.
And total hardness for effective fertilization, the target is usually about 20 parts per million.
20.
If you can get to 15, you're comfortable.
Yeah.
And if it's below 15,
I think I remember
you
him
probably
saying
add
16, and at 16 is when he tossed the water. He said, "You're not gonna have a problem, and worry about something else."
lime. Yeah.
So we really need to do that before I fertilize.
Yeah, you do. You do.
It's kind of like the food plot. I mean, you might be wasting
Yeah,
the fertilizer
that's
if you
right.
don't.
That's
you know?
exactly a good analogy is the food plot.
So we get a water quality test first. County agent tells us our hardiness, and it needs to be between, did you say 15 to 20?
Yeah, 15 to 20. If it's not between 15 to 20, if it's lower than 15, you got to add lime.
Okay.
And that is a formidable task.
Yeah.
Typically, Lime recommendations are in the tons of lime per acre.
We deal with that with
1 to
food
2
plots.
times. Well, the difference is you can't drive your
Right.
spreader
That's right.
over
Over
the
your
pond.
food plot, right?
Barge thing to do it. It's not cheap to do the
Yeah,
lime
and
thing.
it's not that the expense is so great; it's that it takes a lot of sweat.
Yeah, the
It takes
installation.
a lot of effort, but there's no substitute for it. You can't get around it. But no question, head and shoulders above everything else, a good fertilization program is the best thing you can do for a pond. The reason for that is that a pond can support X number of fish. It can be pounds or it can be numbers, doesn't matter how you, but it can support probably 3 to 4 times that if you fertilize it successfully.
Gotcha.
Wow.
So-
which is a huge
Triples or quadruples of
improvement.
carry capacity.
So while we're here, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I don't want to lead the witness, if you will, but specifically, I want to ask you, like right now, we're in this heat advisory. Would you, if a guy was on a cycle of fertilizing every month or every 6 weeks, but we got into this heat all of a sudden, would you avoid fertilizing during this really hot weather?
It'll depend on the lake. I try to err on the side of good fertilization. In other words, I'd rather over fertilize than under fertilize. If I have a relatively minor fish kill because I've over fertilized a lake and the owner gets mad with me, I can stand that. I'd rather do that than see him miss carrying capacity to be lower than what it needs to be. I'd rather see it overdone than underdone. Now, having said that, the way you fertilize is you measure water clarity. And if water clarity, in other words, you can see an object more than about 20 inches down, the lake probably needs fertilizer. And you fertilize it, wait a week or two, measure it again.
20 inches down.
Yeah. So that if your lake in the heat of the summer has been fertilized up until the heat wave comes, it's very likely that if you've done it right, the visibility of the water is going to begin to stay the same. It's not going to require as much fertilizer as that water warms up as it used to. And it has a way then of regulating itself, and you don't get into problems like that. But that's the guideline for fertilizing, is you do it based on water clarity.
Yeah. So figure out a total hardiness, fertilize according to what you're talking about. And then is there a step 3 after that?
Yeah, the third step is to be sure you harvest enough largemouth bass.
There you go.
And that's, I hesitate to say that because it's almost impossible for you to do.
Yes, sir.
You don't fish, the way you fish, you're not targeting 6-inch bass. You're targeting
Big
20-inch
ones.
Oh, you'd be
bass.
surprised what he catches.
What about establishing, established lake, adding structure? Like, is there different types of structure you can add, after an established lake?
Yeah, there is. Structure is, it's sort of like the shoreline vegetation. It has almost absolutely nothing to do with how good the fish population is. Adding structure, for the most part, is not going to really affect a good balanced lake in terms of fish population. What it will change is your ability to find and catch fish. And simple things. One of the common things we'll use on new lakes is rocks, just piles of riprap. I can't explain it. There's lots of things about fish I can't explain, but I know them nevertheless. And bass are just attracted to cotton picking rocks. They like rocks. They hang around them all the time. And simply dumping a load of riprap in a lake will make you a really good spot to fish. Now, if your lake is established, it's not dry and you can't do that, you can do other things. Woody structure is really hard to beat.
Like old Christmas trees, something like that?
I wouldn't use the term Christmas tree, cedar trees.
Okay.
A lot of the Christmas trees, even though they're evergreens, are not as
They're fast grown and they rot quick.
they do. And cedar trees, you know, if you got any fence posts, they last for
They're
a long
baby.
time. They're there. So you get the most bang for your buck out of cedar trees. I use some artificial attractors as well. Artificial attractors have the advantage of never rotting away. They're there forever, at least if you've selected them well. The downside is that you just about can't replicate Mother Nature. You just can't put a man-made structure out there that is as diverse in what it offers fish as a cedar tree or other natural vegetation. The closest I've come is some packing materials, things like flower pots, big tree flower pots, vegetable crates like the peach farmers and the onion farmers use to bring produce in out of the fields. Big, strong, articulated, just lots of little nooks and crannies, just very complex structures. They make excellent fish attractors.
Like stacking pallets, maybe?
Sort of like pallets are not as good because they're made out of wood. They'll rot away. Something made, a plastic pallet, for instance, several pallets structured in a way to make them diverse would be a good fish attractor. I see a lot of folks use PVC, and PVC is okay. I just don't understand why you'd spend that much money, because PVC is expensive. They're not as good as some simpler materials. A trash can, like you see sitting on the side of the highway, a trash can with some holes drilled in it, that makes a pretty darn good fish attractor. Looks if you look at it on your depth finder, it looks just like a stump.
I hadn't thought about that. So to go back to that fertilizing, am I right? You get started when in the spring when the water temperature is about 60?
It's better to start too early than be too late.
And then how long through the summer do you typically?
Until the water temperature falls back into the low 60s, which is usually about 1st of November.
And is there a pond fertilizer you prefer?
No question, Perfect Pond Plus. I'd be lost without it. I buy probably 200 tons a year.
Hey, hit the horns. Customer of the year over here.
I don't know how it was developed. I do know who developed it and who played a hand in it.
Yes.
And they knew what we needed, and they created a product that was just exactly what we needed.
Yeah.
It's unmistakable. There's really no substitute for it.
It's a good one.
What do you say to the person that gets fertilizer and gets that bloom and then never puts the fertilizer out again that summer?
They've wasted their time. They've wasted their first application. And a lot of folks that should know better do that. I mean,
so you should either do it or not.
right.
And this would be,
And the same's true over a period of years. In other words, it wouldn't be good for your fish population to be fertilized one year and then not fertilize it the next year. It's like you've built up this big population and then suddenly you cut off all their groceries. It really unbalanced your population.
So when the water temperature gets to 60 and above, and then till it drops below 60.
And you keep that visibility 20 or
inches,
less,
yeah.
less than 20.
Or
Yep.
less.
Yep.
And do you need a Sechi disc, or can you just drop an old white shoe of Bobby?
Yeah, Bobby's got
out?
some white shoes.
Yeah, a crock, a yellow crock nailed to a stick would be just about right.
Okay.
Did y'all hear him a minute ago? He said crappie.
I did hear crappie.
He's
from East Tennessee.
Yeah, I was kind of a little shocked there.
He was not talking about the fish, Bob. He was talking about what kind of partner they are with largemouth, and they're a really crappy partner
For largemouth, that's true.
so
right? Isn't that right?
You saved me. Yeah, that's right. That's right. If I was talking about fish, I'd said crappie.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever heard of people calling a red ear a chinkapin?
I have.
That's what I grew up
have.
calling them, and I don't. You don't ever hear that much.
They're shell crackers.
Shell crackers are
Yeah, shell cracker.
Yeah, and it's interesting. They've been one of the most frustrating fish for me. They're one fish that I have been remarkably unsuccessful at catching. I'm just not a good shellcracker fisherman.
Don't they good?
tried.
Aren't worms good?
I know all the standard. I mean, I understand what I'm doing wrong. I just can't seem to rectify.
You know, we used to.
He's a convicted man.
Growing up, I did a ton of cane pole, brim fishing with crickets and stuff, and you would. But my grandfather, he even had a fishing club on a lake that they'd go to. He loved to fish more than anything. But he would always say, you know, put a red worm on if you want to catch some of them. But we still never caught many.
Yeah.
It was kind of a novelty when you did catch one.
They are tough. They're tough for me. Although I know some guys who wear them out and they get so big. It's
They're good.
Yeah,
really
it seems
big.
like on average they're bigger than your typical bluegill.
They
Oh
are.
yeah.
by a lot.
But during that spawn, when you catch those big old bull brim, them big old bluegills, they're hard to beat in size.
You're right. And one of the surprising things, and I don't think I'm the only one who's learned it, but one of the surprising things that we've learned in managing for really trophy largemouth is that in the same ponds, we're turning out some really fine bluegill fishing too. I'm talking about honest to goodness 20, 25 ounce bluegill.
That's great.
Pound and a quarter, pound and a half, pretty commonly.
Big bluegill are so fun to catch.
And nobody really expected that in a lake where you're trying to grow a tremendous density of bluegill. But if you get a few of them big ones that get beyond they've got an advantage over the vast majority, they grow awfully big.
Do folks still draw down their ponds in the winter? Is that still a common practice to, like let the bass eat more of the?
It's used sometimes in pretty rare instances. It's used to try to correct problems with balance, but I see it more as a problem than anything else.
Okay.
I see it pretty commonly where, and I'm not sure whether it's false economy or just lack of knowledge, but I'll see folks that they don't have adequate water supply to keep their lake full, and rather than turn on the pump and pay to keep it full, they'll just let the pond go down a foot or two in the heat of the summer. If you think about it, that's probably the worst thing you could possibly do, because it's in the middle of the growing season and you're having a negative effect for maybe a 2 or 3 month period in the middle of the growing season. So instead of an 8 month growing season, you end up with a 5 month or a 4 month growing season. And you're concentrating those fish in a smaller body of water, and that favors the largemouth bass. Makes it easier for them to prey on bluegill, and that shifts your pond completely out of balance. You end up with more largemouth than you need. So it creates problems for you, and that's not as readily apparent to folks as it needs to be. They're not saving a dime by not running the pump. They ought to turn the pump on, keep the lake full.
Well, speaking of growing, what's the biggest bass that you have grown in one of your ponds that you manage?
I never know for certain, because obviously owners and fishermen can take fish and I'm not aware of it. But the biggest fish that I've actually have reliable information about are 14 and a half pounds is the biggest one. Several fish in the 13s.
Bobby, would you quit drooling over
That's
there?
a big fish.
Yeah, wipe your mouth.
What's the biggest you've ever caught personally?
12 and a quarter.
Ooh, wow.
12-2. I got a 12-2.
You sure do. I saw a picture of you kissing it. I don't
I
know.
did kiss it. That's the only one I've ever. That's the only one. I mean, intentionally, it's the only one I've ever killed. I just wanted to mount the fish. So
I understand.
That one time, because it was in a pond first one we ever built there.
Yeah.
And the thing about that one is, I learned about the all Floridas. You can grow a tremendous fish, but you might not ever get him to touch a bait.
Well, and the one I'm most proud of, I guess, is I caught one out of that state lake that I told you was the first all-female lake.
Wow.
I caught one out of it that weighed 10 and a quarter on a popping bug and fly.
Oh,
my
I bet that was
Wow.
And
fun.
of course had to release him, so
Her.
she was still there.
Yeah.
So.
Did she just come up and just suck it, or did you know she was a big fish as soon as she sucked it in?
No, in that lake in particular, I see this with female-only lakes, those big females will act differently than they act in a conventional kind of a lake. You'll see a fish up on shore, not on shore, but up in real shallow water, cruising, chasing, looking to. I think they're probably looking to trap something against the bank so they can get it, and so it's common to see them before you ever get them to bite, and that's what I saw that day. I was out there fishing and easing around, looking, and a lot of times just listening to hear a fish up there feeding in that shallow water. And once you hear one in a particular location, in that female-only lake, that fish is going to stay right there in that general area. And I just fished it with the popping bug, and yeah, she wasn't bashful about hitting it. She hit it real hard.
Oh, wow. I bet that was a
cool.
fight.
Yeah, that's a dream come true right there. A huge largemouth on a fly.
Yeah. Like I say, that's my proudest fish, I think.
Were you rigged to catch a large fish, or were you brim fishing?
No, I was fishing in a lake where that was my target.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
And what
that
kind
was
of
my target.
what kind of leader would you have on a popping bug trying to catch a big bass?
I'm a very unsophisticated fly fisherman. I don't have a lot of intricate gear. It was a flat piece of 15-pound monofilament, probably.
Yeah, okay.
Tied to the fly line.
Come on, Bobby.
Well, just trying to learn here.
I mean, yeah, but I probably wants to know about their lakes and their ponds and how to manage fish. And you're getting free advice on how to catch them.
You gonna ask him what color the lure was next?
I can't send an invoice.
Yeah,
Yes,
you
yes,
actually
you can.
could. Yes, that's
100%.
right. Just be sure it goes directly to Bobby.
My goodness, here. Well,
No,
look,
nothing's free that's worthwhile, Bobby.
we've got a few more little questions. We really didn't hit on shad, and I wanted to ask you about crawfish. Is that something that you?
Oh my, crawfish is not something that I typically ever recommend. There's crawfish, depending on where you buy them and what you get. There's lots of reasons you shouldn't stock crawfish. The crawfish you can buy are Louisiana reds that while they're tasty and delicious, it's like stocking an exotic species in your favorite lake in hopes that they're going to take over, and that's not good for the native crawfish that live
Not
there.
at all.
And that's one good that's a reason enough to never stock them in my book. It's also, I think, pretty short-sighted. Folks think that crawfish are highly prized food items of bass. And the reason they think that, I believe, is because they see the remains of crawfish in the stomachs of the bass they catch. And the reason they see the remains of the crawfish in the stomach of the bass they catch is because the crawfish remains don't digest. It's like a rock.
Right, yeah.
Calcium.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
And it wasn't, he didn't eat that crawfish because he liked it. He ate it because it was there.
Right.
And you think he did it a lot because he then carries around the remains of that crawfish for a week or two. They're not highly prized by fish. And you're buying them by the pound, $4 a pound, probably. Right. And think about the crawfish. Most of the weight is in the shell, and so you're spending $4 a pound to buy something that's of no benefit to your fish whatsoever.
Okay, well, we'll
So,
scratch that.
I mean,
one
what
off
I
the
hear
list.
him telling us from a broader standpoint is just kind of like the deer things, like with all the people trying to sell a gimmick that'll make them throw off 2 more G2s and all this stuff, the basics. We all know that from listening to a lot of smart biologists. And he's telling us the same thing with bass. Don't be looking for some magic bean. You got to do the basics right, or you're just wasting your money.
Yeah, lowest
know,
holes
so-
in the bucket
Yeah,
first.
and then, maybe there are some things, but if you don't stick to the basics, there's not like an extra magic bean there. I mean, sounds like to me if you're going to do something additional, and it's not a magic bean, but for me, it seemed to be the most productive thing with the shad, threadfin shad.
Do more of the same.
Yeah.
Instead of spending your money on crawfish, spend it on something that does do some good,
Man, the
like
shad.
threadfin shad or bluegill or any others. Rainbow trout are an excellent forage fish in the wintertime, and very popular with they're just it's like they're made to be eaten by another fish. They're just
Like an overgrown fathead minnow, aren't they? Just
they
about?
are a lot, and they're shaped like, and they act in ways that make them very vulnerable to bass. So
That's the thing. I
they're-
wish the shad, you can't get the fatheads to survive because there's like, they're the perfect fish. And you put them in a
They
year ahead of time.
disappear.
It's like they're so slow and they don't even run from them when they eat them. They just devour them so quick, and they're nutrient dense. I'll get out evidently too. But you know, I don't know if you can put enough cover in there for them to survive. Can you?
Well, and that defeats the purpose of them being there.
Yeah, I guess if you don't. Yep.
You know, I've seen folks commonly recommend cover so that fathead minnows or small bluegill can hide and not get eaten.
Well, then they're not going to get eaten.
Hell, they're not going to get eaten. So that's not the point.
So one last thing, I got to actually do something I can't avoid, but I do remember him also always telling me, you know, he was talking about maybe not even to maybe the second year, but then the third year before you get really, really serious about harvesting the like whatever 12-inch and under, whatever you tell us to do, 12-inch, 14-inch and under. But he said if you can kind of keep up with the size of the ones you first stocked, because those are going to be the ones that have the best chance to get to maximum amount. He said you put them in there, it's perfect. When they start, you put them in, they're just gorging themselves, plenty of food and everything. So he had always said to me, if you can, kind of keep up with that and be sure you don't catch any of those, you know.
If you can.
And probably the females are the only thing you really keep up with the size, because as you subsequently, you'll have a male about the size of a female, you know.
Yeah, your males just sort of disappear in the population, but those big females from that first stocking always persist. And,
The OG stocking.
and I call them 8-year geniuses, the guys who did nothing right except stock it correctly.
Yep.
And if they stocked it correctly and did everything else wrong, they're going to have good fishing because of those big fish for about 8 years.
Wow,
And
that's
that's
good.
some-
8, but I mean, I've been telling people all along, you're going to be. It's going to year 3 will start to be unbelievable if they've done what you told them to. But that's also when you need to start seriously the management practices
You
and
do.
listen to them, or else it won't last. And I didn't think it would last that long, but you know, the longer it's unmanaged, the harder it's going to be. It's kind of like cancer. The earlier you catch it, the easier it is to cure.
And although fishermen won't notice the changes by year 8, scientists sampling the population,
That's right.
you'll see the difference. We'll see the difference in 3 years.
He always said, you know,
things going. in
if
the
you're
wrong
doing a
direction.
census with the boat and they come in, but you know, you're better off to bring them in before, and then they can compare year over year. Then you really start to get a picture.
So look, let's turn the page just a little bit. Let's learn a little bit about you. You're a heck of a fisherman. You travel all over chasing fish. I had the hardest time trying to find some dates to get you in here. But tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing.
Well, I learned shortly after I retired that somehow I was not fishing as much as I used to fish when I worked for DNR, and I think that was because I wasn't regimented enough, and I learned in about 3 or 4 months that to correct that problem, what I did, I started scheduling about a week every month. That's when I go fishing. And I don't do my work then. I do my work before then and after then, but I try to sit down. And so as a result, I'm looking for places to go every month of the year, somewhere. A lot of it is to South Louisiana, where I'm catching redfish. I really love fishing the southern part of Florida in the Everglades. I just got back from there catching tarpon and snook. I also enjoy fishing for peacock bass in the northern part of the Everglades. It's just a real hoot. It's an easy trip to make, and it's inexpensive. And gosh, you catch more fish there than I caught when I went to Brazil and fished. Smallmouth bass in places like Maine, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota.
Now you've done a trip or two up there. hadn't you?
I went a place he recommended. That's
Okay.
years
Yeah,
ago.
and it's hard to beat smallmouth. I mean, smallmouth are a real
We hear that a
real
lot.
sporty fish. I can understand why folks are so tempted to want them here. That's not a good idea, but smallmouth are hard to beat. They sure are.
So I like that idea that you have of 1 week a month. I'm going to go somewhere
Just
and
put
go
it on the
fishing.
calendar. Require it.
Yeah, I'm in on
It's
this.
a pretty.
Hey, can I take in 3 weeks?
No,
Can I take a,
no. You've already used your vacation.
What I
Hey,
found,
but
that
you were fishing.
what limits it is finding a partner to go with. I'm the kind of guy who I enjoy fishing, but I enjoy fishing with somebody.
Yeah.
I enjoy it most when somebody's with me, and it's hard to find folks who are frankly good enough fishermen and flexible enough in their travel schedule and physically capable enough to go. I'm fast approaching, I think, that the time when I won't get to go, but a good partner is hard to come by. I'm accepting applications.
I'd like to raise my hand.
Yeah,
out
I
here.
can. Yeah, can you take 2 or 3 of us?
So, are you mostly fly fishing or exclusively fly fishing?
No, it's not exclusive. I mostly fly fish and have for 20 or more years, but I got started fly fishing for a very unusual reason. I was typically fishing with my brother, and he reached a point in his fishing life where he was throwing popping bugs for largemouth bass on Lake Okeechobee, and I was fishing along behind him with a bait caster. And in the time it took me to make one cast and catch a fish and bring him in, get him off the hook, and be ready to cast again, he could catch 2 or 3 on a fly, on a popping bug. He just much faster.
Golly.
And so that's what stimulated me to start fly fishing. So it's a completely different kind of reason than most fishermen would have.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought about that.
And some of the places we fish down in South Florida where the environment is just so rich in life. I mean, it's like fishing in fish soup. You are only limited by your physical capacity to catch fish. The number of fish you catch is totally up to those physical constraints. It's pretty common to go down there and catch on popping bugs. If you're fit enough to do it, you can catch 200 or 300 fish a day. I figured out the hard way my capacity is about 1 every 5 or 6 minutes. If they're any more active than that, it wears me out. I got to stop, take a nap.
So, what would you say is your favorite fish to chase?
It's really hard to say. I like them all, and I could be content with any of the ones that I've mentioned already. I wouldn't pick one, but I wouldn't be hurting if you took one of them away from me either, though, because the others are just as good.
Yeah. What is it about fishing you think that you enjoy so much?
I've never thought about that. That's a real good question. I don't know. I learned early on that there's things I run across in life that I cannot explain to my satisfaction. And if I dwell on them, I still don't figure them out. It just occupies me and doesn't do good things for me. And that's one of those things. I don't know why that is, and I ain't going to worry about it. I'm just going to succumb.
The fact that you like so many different species of fish, I think a lot of folks are like that. Nobody just likes to narrow it down.
I'm afraid my favorite is out there, and I just ain't found it yet.
Yeah.
That's right. Same with trees for me, It's hard to pick one.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you pick one?
The interesting thing about fishing is, so they're most always in beautiful places, and it's relaxing. But a lot of times you get to you've got a choice. You can keep that fish and maybe take him home and fry him up and feed your family, or you can release him. And there's a choice there. Hunting a lot of times, once that's over with, there's only one outcome, and that deer's dead. And then there's no rubbing on him and taking a picture and letting him, so it's a little bit different like that. Lanny, you're looking at me like I have lost my mind here. I'm trying to explain something.
Lanny likes to fillet and release.
Yeah, I didn't understand this throwing fish back concept that you were talking about.
Well, and one of the things else I've learned in my career, and this is not relished by most biologists, I'd say, is that fishermen don't really pose the threat to fish that they think they do. Fish are pretty darn good at taking care of themselves. I've heard folks talk about what can we do in our pond so that the fish spawn better. gosh, you don't need to do a thing. They're doing great like it is. The problem is they're doing it too much.
Yeah, they're very fit.
You know, fishermen are just not that big of a threat to fish, at least the fish that we typically are talking about here in the South.
Can fish figure out, like if you've got a pond and you've a bunch of people going out there fishing, they kind of figure out what's going on there. I mean, you can train them not to bite, can't you?
Yeah, you can. You can, and
Do you have a rule of thumb for how much pressure a guy should go? How many times he should let somebody go fishing his lake? Is there a rule of thumb there? Once a week?
no, there's not. The smaller the lake, obviously, the fewer the fish, and the more likely that is to occur and manifest itself. That'd be I think a problem that would regulate itself. If fish get hard to catch, the fisherman's going to quit fishing, and as he quits, the fishing's going to rebound, and they're going to get easier to catch again. So I don't think it's ever a permanent problem. It's a lot like other predators eating your fish. You know, I get calls all the time. Folks are concerned that the turtles are eating all their fish, you know, and turtles, the ones that eat fish, don't eat that many fish. I mean, it's obvious. A big snapper turtle lived to be 150 years old. If he ate very many fish, he'd be as big as a house. Cormorants, eagles, ospreys, otters, they get blamed for eating lots of fish. They are probably not nearly as bad for the fish as we think they are. If when somebody tells me they've got a problem like that, I think they're lucky that they've got so many fish that those critters want to come to their place to eat.
Okay.
You know, so
It's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Dudley, why don't you, we should have done this at the beginning. That guy was just so excited to get to talk to him. Let's do the rapid fire.
All right. Well, I think we've answered a couple of the questions, but he can just re-answer them.
Yeah, so Les, he's going to ask you some questions. It's brought to you by, we've got some friends, partners at the
Nutrient Ag.
That's right, Nutrient Ag Solutions. So.
All right, Les. So I don't know if you've heard this, but I'm going to ask you about 10 to a dozen questions, kind of in a rapid fire sequence. Lots of yes, no, maybe. Don't spend 10 minutes answering the question.
I'll
Okay.
try my best.
All right. So,
If I lapse into some sort of coma, you just
well, I got a cow horn. I'll hit it real hard. Okay. Are you ready?
yes,
All right. Furthest north you've ever caught a fish.
Canada,
How do you like your coffee?
no coffee,
No,
No
coffee.
coffee.
Name your favorite freshwater fish to eat.
walleye,
What about saltwater inshore?
speckled trout,
What about offshore?
swordfish,
Ooh, that's good. Have you ever flown a kite to catch a fish?
no sir,
What is your go-to fishing snack?
Jack's Links.
Hey.
You like boiled peanuts?
Yeah, not when I'm fishing. They got to tie up my fingers and I can't fish.
Get it, get it. Has anyone in your family ever had a tick-borne illness?
No,
Can you taste the difference between a hatchery fish and a fish that hatched in the lake?
oh yes,
Okay.
Huh.
Have you ever seen or heard of a world record largemouth in the southeast from a shock survey?
no,
And
Are you telling the truth?
we're gonna have to, yeah. And last but not least, you can only have one knot to tie on a hook for the rest of your life. What knot is that?
a clinch knot.
A clinch knot.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Good job.
It's the only knot I can tie with my eyesight deteriorating like that.
Okay.
That's-
Perfect.
I saw him cross his legs when you asked that question about a world record pass. I'm just thinking there
Did he
might
look
be
down at the ground?
I was
might have
looking
passed
right
on.
at him. He squinted his eyes. He crossed his ankles.
We may have to bring a polygraph in here.
All right, Richie, we've got a trivia question specifically just for you. Trivia is brought to you by our friends at the Peanut Patch. I understand you do like boiled peanuts.
I love
though.
boiled peanuts.
We love boiled peanuts.
We do love boiled peanuts.
Peanut Patch is going to be my next stop.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Jack Links is great too.
Yeah.
All right, here. So our listener who left a review and is our winner today is Goodbye Dudley.
What?
Yeah, well, that's interesting.
That's somebody's name, huh? That's their handle.
Yeah.
Was it a good review?
Theoretically, you know. I don't know.
You think Bobby might have made that up?
No,
to
I
make
didn't.
me
I don't know
feel
where
good
Bobby
about
pulled.
myself?
No.
I don't know
Wasn't
where, I don't know where Bobby pulled.
I don't
this.
have time to do all that, Dudley.
Sure you.
Oh no, they left a good review. You know, I absolutely love the podcast. Thank you for helping me learn so much about gamekeeping.
Oh, wow. Good
Yeah,
deal.
and so they win a companion's T-shirt.
Nice.
Yeah, those are great T-shirts.
It's
you know,
great
they have a
stuff.
pocket in them. I love a pocket.
I love
on
a
t-shirt.
pocket and a T-shirt.
Keep up with my glasses, because if I lose my glasses,
yeah.
suddenly I cannot.
Oh, your pocket protector.
Yeah. Or I thought you put your cigarettes in there.
No, I kind of.
Well, that's what they were originally
Well,
made
well,
for.
well, he's got his vape now. I guess.
I don't have a vape.
Do you vape, bro?
It's just glasses. Les, this is a rough group right here.
All right, so here we go, Mr. Les. Where is fly fishing thought to have originated?
Wow.
England.
Well, it's pretty close. Pretty close. That's where I would have thought. But when we Googled this through the magic of the
called
internet,
the internet, yeah.
it said something different.
So fly fishing is thought to have originated in ancient Macedonia.
That's Europe, isn't it?
You know, Macedonia. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I guess so. You know, so specifically a Roman author named Claudius Alanus.
Fly fisherman, yes.
Yeah, described Macedonians using a form of fly fishing on the Astris River using a red wool and feathers to imitate flies.
Now, did Google tell you this?
Yeah, well, Wikipedia. Or something
Wikipedia
something
told
like
you
that.
this. Okay.
So you
I
could
think-
be right.
Yeah, I think
over
he's
there.
right. I think he should ring the bell.
Yeah. But it's interesting, Macedonia.
Macedonia.
Richie lives in Caledonia.
Well, there's
a Macedonia here.
right down the road in Sugarlock. You
Yeah.
know, we go to Macedonia Church.
There you go.
got down there.
You know, fly fishing is just souped up cane pole fishing.
Yeah.
It really is.
It really is.
Yeah. So let me tell this. So through Barry, I met a guy. It was a smallmouth guide in Minnesota named Kip Veith. Great guy, really a lot of fun. But they're really into these leaders and knowing what size leader, what pound leader, and all this. And he said, "Oh my goodness, when Barry and Les come up there, they taught me they take a 40 down to a 20." I think was what he said. Mm-hmm. And he said that's what they use. They never break off a fish. They don't worry about all the little intricate little details. But Les and Barry had just said, "Guys, it's so simple. Just do this, and it works." And I'm told you were the guy behind all that.
Well, and it's for the guide's benefit. When you get hung up, if you've got a light leader on there,
It's gonna snap,
it's
right?
you're either going to break it off or you got to go get it. But if you've got a heavy enough leader, all you have to do is just keep pulling, and sooner or later something's going to give, and you save the guide having to go get it. And those folks sometimes scoff at you for using a 20-pound leader to catch a 2-pound smallmouth. Well, you can pretend it's a small leader if you want to, you know, until it gets hung up, and then you can pretend it's a big leader.
There you go.
It's all about efficiency.
Yeah, it is.
Well, this same guy says that man right there is the best with a fly rod he's ever seen.
Nice.
Laying a bug right where it
needs to be.
Yeah, said he's really good. So how do you practice? Well, you fish once a month. I get that, but where did the proficiency come from?
Your proficiency of my fishing skills are greatly exaggerated. And I'd question your source.
So you kind of learn by doing.
I did.
I mean, you're from the South.
And I've never had an instructor, and it shows. And commonly, I get in the boat with somebody, and I mean, it embarrasses me to see them cast so much better than I do. Although, in my defense, I will say it's pretty rare that even though they cast better than me, that they can catch any more than I do.
That's what's important.
Because I work at it a lot harder. I take it I take it maybe too seriously sometimes, but I'm not a great caster, and never have been, and never will be. I'm too old now. I think too old to change. When I learned to fly fish, it was really just souped up cane pole fishing.
If it ain't broke.
Don't fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Les Ager, we have enjoyed this.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
We really have. You're how do you say that? Where it's like an old soul that's the ways that they're rooted in the traditions and the old school ways, and that's what I feel about you.
An albatross, I think.
Well, I'm trying to say that in a complimentary way.
I appreciate it. It's been fun to be here in the center of the Mossy Oak world and the Gamekeeper world. Y'all do some really interesting stuff, and I can see why you're so successful. It's the passion y'all generate is very obvious. I enjoyed it.
Well, thank you, sir.
We don't get a lot of compliments.
No, we don't.
It's nice to get one from time to time. Well, we'll have to do this again.
And a shout out too, while I've got a chance, to my wife.
Yes, sir.
My wife JD, who doesn't get to fish with me as much as she used to, for helping me be successful at this stuff.
Hey, hit the horns on that,
Yeah.
Richie.
Wives are so important. How long have y'all been married?
Oh Lord, since 1982. It's been a wild ride. She used to fish just as much as I did.
Wow.
And her interests have changed over the years. Mine have sort of been intransient. So
You got any marriage advice for any people listening?
go fishing more.
There you go.
Go fishing
Yeah,
more.
the guy we had some coon hunters here the other night. I thought it was pretty interesting. He said, "Honey, I'll be home when the doorknob turns." I'd never heard that one.
I couldn't get away with that.
I don't know if I'm ever going to try that one.
All right, Mr. Les, we've enjoyed having you. Thank you all. You traveled all the way here from. Did we put you up in a nice hotel, or Richie? Did we book a dump, or what? Did we?
Well, I believe you booked the hotel there, Bobby.
Did you enjoy your stay?
It was a wonderful Hampton Inn that you ensconced me in.
There we go.
How was the continental breakfast?
About as good as you can get. This side of Alabama, I think.
I always like it when they have those little mini sausages out. Those things are so good, and the white gravy is usually good at the Hampton Inns.
The gravy was good. You're right.
How about that?
Can we go eat?
Yeah, we can. This has been fun. Thank you so much. So let's wrap this thing up. Why don't you say goodbye, Doug?
Goodbye, Dudley.
Get us out of here, Richie.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast, and be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.